Good evening, Razorback Nation, and we want to welcome you to the one, the only Hawg Talk podcast, live from the Electrical Supply Guys studios. And as always, we are a part of the Believe and Buzz Radio networks, and you can hear us on all podcast platforms, as well as Buzz 2 and 106.7 in Central Arkansas. So please like, rate, and review our podcast. I'm your host, Porter Hayes of Sports and Culture Arkansas, and alongside me is Jacob Davis from Arkansas Fight. All live shows are presented by Arkansas Brewing Company in Ozark, Arkansas. And as always, our podcasts are brought to you by Bet Online. It's the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports, contests, events with the first market odds and lines. So we can find reviews, news for every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. So head on over to Bet Online or use your mobile device today to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50 to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online is where the game starts. And guys, we will open the show by going to the Workman's Travel Center hotline on very short notice. We will bring in the owner of Bearcat Journal, Chad Brindle. Chad, thank you for joining us tonight. I know things are starting to ramp up with college football and sports in general, just a few weeks away. So thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it. It's been, we are about 2/3 of the way through camp here at Cincinnati. So, been out every day at Camp Higher Ground watching the Bearcats practice and pumping out the content and getting ready for, I don't think a lot of people realize this. Cincinnati hasn't lost a regular season game since 2019. They went undefeated in 2020 in the regular season, undefeated again last year. So, they're trying to keep the train rolling.
And I think for rankings, so to speak, coming in top 25 matchup with both teams, but I think you can say that this is going to be one of the most anticipated matchups because what can Arkansas do to rebound off that 9-4 year? What can Cincinnati do to build off of that, college football playoff appearance? And from the Arkansas side of things, of where you've seen how things unfolded for both teams, and there might be some that think that Cincinnati's going to come in after losing a lot of talent and might be able, not per se have a cakewalk, but maybe they, for the most part, think they have this in the bag.
Yeah, I mean, this is Luke Fickell has talked. He started last year talking about wanting to develop into a top 10 program and not a top 10 team. And what he meant by that is, anyone can have that year where everything comes together and you have a star quarterback and, a top five draft pick at corner and all the chips fall in line and you have that amazing season. But what he wants to build is where's he from? Ohio State. What happens at Ohio State? Every year, no matter what, they're in the top 10. And that's what he's talking about, the type of thing he wants to build at Cincinnati. This year is going to be the test of that, right? Because you made the college football playoff. If you watch that game, they gave Alabama fits. Like, Alabama was better, but Alabama didn't just walk in and push Cincinnati around. Why? Because Cincinnati had 9 guys drafted, including the second quarterback drafted, the number 1 cornerback drafted. They had a safety go in the second round, a wide receiver go in the second round, and linebackers and defensive linemen and the entire gamut across their roster are now in the NFL. pretty secure in making NFL rosters. Can they do that? That's the $1 million question about Cincinnati this year. And I'm guessing Luke Fickell would probably like to strangle former athletic director Mike Bohn, because you'd like maybe a little bit easier ramp up into finding out exactly what you have behind losing 9 guys. And instead they go to Fayetteville and face what Cincinnati fans realize is a very good Arkansas team. Do you guys know there's a connection here?
What's that?
Absolutely not.
Sam Pittman coached at Cincinnati.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Back in the early 2000s, right?
Yeah, he coached with Rick Minner, who a lot of people don't realize this, but guys that were on Rick Minner's staff include Pittman, the Ryan brothers, John Harbaugh, like Mike Tomlin. Like all those guys rotated through Cincinnati in the early 2000s. So there's a lot of respect for Arkansas. There's a lot of respect for, I think Sam Pittman does things a lot like Luke Fickell, offensive and defensive line driven program. They're going to win in the trenches. They're going to be physical. They're going to play the game the right way. I think there's a great deal of mutual respect there. And I think it shapes up to be a really interesting game for both teams.
Yeah.
And before we really dive into, this year and this matchup, what talk to us about how much it meant. We know how hard it was for a Power 5 to, even sniff the college football playoff or even having a chance. So what did it mean for you who covered the team? What did it mean for the team? Everybody who's been a Bearcat fan their whole lives, what did it mean to get that respect and we're going to let you sit at the big boy table this year?
Well, first off, financially, it was great. I think what it does to a fan base is it lets a fan base know it's possible. Cincinnati was 1 second away from playing for a national championship in 2009. If you remember the Nebraska-Texas Big 12 championship game, they put 1 second back on the clock and allowed Texas to kick a field goal. That was the day Cincinnati had defeated Pitt in a classic Big East championship game. If they don't put that 1 second back on the clock, Cincinnati plays Alabama in the national championship in 2009. And there was kind of this feeling of that was the shot. And we missed it by a second. And it's never coming back around. And especially, the Big East falls apart, they get relegated to the American. The damage that does to recruiting, especially when you're talking about competing with the best of the best. You just can't recruit. It's very difficult to recruit in the mid to high 3-star range against teams that are recruiting in the high 4 to 5-star range. All of that catches up to you over the course of a 60-minute game. So to have it come back around, especially in a season where they found out right at the beginning of the season that they were going to the Big 12. So all of a sudden there was this life, kind of funneled back into the program that they were no longer going to be on the outside looking in. And it happened in a season when they had a chance. They had basically last year came down to this. They had the road game at Notre Dame. And if you went and beat Notre Dame at Notre Dame, you had that trump card to play throughout the process. And they still almost got left out. So it was just such a magical run. I think the thing we used to love about college sports, and it's kind of going away, this was a bunch of guys that had been at Cincinnati for 4, 5, 6 years. And the fan base loved Des Ridder and Kobe Bryant, and Ahmad Sauce Gardner, and this whole crew. They were invested in these guys, so I think it meant a lot to see, that there was still opportunity. There was still a door that could open for Cincinnati to climb through. They knew, ultimately Alabama, playing Alabama in the playoffs, it's like, oh, hey, we made the playoffs. Who's our first round opponent? Tom Brady and the Patriots.
Yeah.
Shit. Damn it.
Yeah. And he gets a month to prepare for your team
he
as
gets
well.
a month to prepare for your. That was my number one talking point the entire time. It was like, look, Saban has 30 quality control analysts that were like former head coaches. They are sitting there for a month dissecting everything about you. And they're going to come in with a phenomenal game plan. And what did they come in? The first 2 series of the game, phenomenal game plan, executed to perfection, put Cincinnati on their heels, and they were able to, kind of ride that to victory. It's Alabama in the playoff. Come on.
Yeah. So you have Des Ridder gone.
Yeah.
Who's next? Who's the guy that's going to take Cincinnati to the next level? Because it's going to be hard to replace a guy that led them to a huge win against Notre Dame, and what I think you said they hadn't lost a regular season game since 2019.
2019.
He led them to a lot of wins.
He's the 3rd winningest quarterback in the history of the NCAA. He has more wins than Peyton Manning.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. So it's a lot of people don't realize what happened to lead us to where we're at now, because Desmond Ritter's backup quarterback 2018, 2019, and 2020 was a young man named Ben Bryant. Big arm. He actually started the final regular season game in Memphis in 2019. That was for basically the regular season #1 seed in the American. Played a really good game. And then Ridder came back from injury and started the championship game. After the 2020 season, after the Georgia game in the Peach Bowl, Bryant decided I got to go somewhere to play. Des decided he was coming back. He was clearly going to be the starter, so Ben wanted to go play. He went to Eastern Michigan for a season, was the starter there, threw for 3,000 yards, 14 touchdowns, led Eastern Michigan to a bowl game, which, if you know anything about college football, that's not exactly
that's tough to do.
It's not exactly Alabama. And then after the season, he just decided, look, Cincinnati's where I belong. That's where I want to be. So he came back home to Cincinnati and is now in the running for the starting quarterback job against a young man named Evan Prater. Evan Prater is the highest ranked recruit in Cincinnati football history.
Yep.
He's a 4-star quarterback, 24/7 Sports, where Bearcat Journal is a part of that network. We had him as a top 50 player in his recruiting class. Those two are going toe-to-toe, and they have been since spring for the starting quarterback job. Ben is a pocket passer, NFL arm. Not as mobile, but Evan is kind of like a Desmond Ridder clone. If you remember Desmond Ridder early in his career, he can get out on the perimeter. He can beat you with his legs. He has a big arm. It's a little less consistent than Bryant, but it's not for a lack of arm strength. So the two of them, it's a matter of what does Luke Fickell want with the weapons that they have in-house. Do you want to go with the more reliable pocket passer, or do you want to go with a guy that can beat defenses not only with his arm, but also with his legs and the RPO game, things like that?
So, Cincinnati, coming into Fayetteville, Arkansas, I've said this for a couple weeks on the show, that to me on offense, the biggest question mark would be their wide receiver core. And so what would you think is going to be really the plan of attack, knowing you have pretty much a running dual threat quarterback, KJ Jefferson? What do you think? What are you looking out of with this Luke Fickell defense coming into Fayetteville and trying to pull off this upset to, set that tone of last year wasn't a fluke?
So the Cincinnati defense is going to be different. You don't lose the number 1 cornerback, the number 4 pick in the draft in America, and the Thorpe Award winner, which goes to the top defensive back in the country, and then just say, we're fine in the secondary. And not only that, everybody wants to point to Ahmad Gardner and Kobe Bryant as losses, but they also lost their number 1 safety in Brian Cook, who was drafted in the 2nd round by the Kansas City Chiefs. So you lose 3 pieces that Alabama, Ohio State would be searching for what's next if they lost 3 guys of that magnitude. But Cincinnati's strength, I think, as we go into this coming season, they're really strong at linebacker, and they're really strong in their starting in the ones group on the defensive line. Teams like to rotate. You don't want to leave a defensive lineman out there for 70-80% of the snaps. We don't know what Cincinnati has in the second unit yet because those guys are mostly untested. But they're really good up front with the first 3, and they've got 5 linebackers that have a chance to be NFL-type guys. So they're going to be flying around at the line of scrimmage. I think that plays pretty well into what Arkansas plans to do in terms of schematically, offensively. I think the way you're going to be able to beat this Cincinnati defense early is to be able to get some plays on the outside to soften them up and make them kind of spread out. Because if they can close in on you with what they have in their first, they run a 3-3-5 base. There's been some experimentation with a new group because of what their strength is. We've seen some 3-4. We've seen some 4-3. We've seen, variations of the 3-3-5. So it'll be interesting because if Arkansas can block them up and hold that front group from Cincinnati in check, they've got to have a chance to have a really good day offensively. We're going to find out. Cincinnati lost Joel DeBlanco's with the Seahawks, and Darian Beavers is escaping my mind where he went to right now. But Giants, New York Giants. Those 2 guys from the linebacker core in the NFL, and then Myjai Sanders with the Arizona Cardinals, Curtis Brooks is with the Indianapolis Colts. When you lose 4 guys in your front 6, again, that's a challenge. It's a big challenge. So we'll see, but I think Cincinnati's got the talent up front to compete.
Yeah, and Arkansas, they're gonna want to set the tone early and run the football. And so, getting some guys on the edge. They have a new guy. Coach Pittman's been talking a lot about this week. Isaiah Satania. He's a big time wide receiver, 4-star out of just down the road in Fayetteville High School. So being able to stretch the field side to side, they're going to want to go up north and south, especially with Rocket Sanders and if Dominique Johnson's healthy, if AJ Green is ready to go, they're going to be wanting to do that. How do you think Cincinnati can stand up against a Razorback run game, which was the one that led the entire Power 5 conference football last year in rushing, 227 yards a game?
That'll probably be the $1 million question because Cincinnati wasn't great against the run last year. When teams were able to muddy up the game and hang around Cincinnati, they were able to load the box, run the ball, and have success. The defensive line, the construction of the defensive line is different this year in that it's a lot more power. Like Myjai Sanders was an ultimate 240-pound edge rusher that was looking to speed rush and get up the field at all times. Jabari Taylor and Malik Vann, who are going to be running the ends on that 3-man front this year, are both a lot more stout, a lot more physical. It should relate to a better showing against the run game. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to run 3 down linemen and 3 linebackers, and you're not going to run fit, as we saw, they had a problem against Alabama. Teams are going to be able, especially an SEC team with the size up front that Arkansas is going to have, with the quality at running back that Arkansas is going to have, with the dual threat ability of a very, very good quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks in college football, I think, for next year. That's where this game, I think, is going to be won or lost when Arkansas has the ball. If they can sustain long, kind of grinded out drives and keep that Cincinnati defense on the field and tired, then they're going to be in a good position. If Cincinnati is able to muster 3 and outs or 1 first down and out, then I think Arkansas might start pressing and trying to do things that aren't characteristic
we've seen that
for
before.
Who they are, right?
And we got to talk about the timing of the kickoff and how hot it's been. What you're talking about, wearing down a defense and wearing down a team that might not have the depth as a traditional SEC team. How do you think that's going to come into play with a 2:30 kickoff? Dead heat of the summer. That, especially with that run game, is there worry on the Cincinnati side of things that this could turn into just a run heavy, try to wear you down, and just go for a home run shot here and there?
Potentially, but again, like I said, I think the question for Cincinnati is that second rotation on the defensive line, and there's a lot of talent there, and they have a guy that might have one of the best names in college football as their backup defensive tackle right now, Dante Corleone, the Godfather.
There you go.
He lost 30 pounds this summer to get down to 320. And he is a spark plug. Are you guys? You guys seem like you're probably around my age range. Remember Bebop and Rocksteady from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Yes.
He looks like a combination of the two of them.
Yeah.
They had a baby. So if the second unit defensive line, and one of those guys is a transfer from Ohio State named Sam Porter. There was a 4-star recruit at Ohio State that is working his way in, along with Dante Corleone and a guy named Eric Phillips. If that rotation at defensive line holds up, I think Cincinnati's going to be fine. The strength of this roster is at linebacker. They have that hybrid coverage linebacker position.
Yeah.
They call it the dollar in the 3-3-5 defense. In that position alone last year, they had 2 guys combined for 163 tackles.
Wow. That's production.
One of them's name's Deshaun Pace. He was up over 90, and the other is Ty Van Fossen, was up around 70. And they rotated them basically. You get 2 series, and then if there was a drive that went over 6 or 7 plays, then the other one would come in, and it allowed them to keep the rotation fresh. Now they've got that at weak side linebacker as well, with the guy named Jaheim Thomas, who was a 4-star coming out of Cincinnati, and then Ivan Pace, who is the older brother of Deshaun Pace, who was a 3rd-team All-American last year at Miami of Ohio. So your 2 outside linebacker spots, you've got a 50-50 split of guys that are big-time players, and that should allow that Cincinnati defense to avoid some of that fatigue being out in that summer sun. But make no mistake, it gets pretty damn hot and humid here in Cincinnati too. I've been standing out of practice every day. It ain't exactly like we're in air conditioning.
So, Cincinnati has come to Arkansas and play. Y'all did go and play at Notre Dame last year. Pretty intimidating environment. Arkansas was supposed to have played them. Was it 2 seasons ago, Porter? Due to the COVID year.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it was 2020. They were going to play. Arkansas was going to play at South Bend. But how is Cincinnati looking forward to coming to Fayetteville? Kind of seeing what the environment's like there.
So you have to remember.
What are y'all anticipating?
You have to remember, Cincinnati has lost 2 games in the last 2 years.
Oh yeah.
And they were both the SEC opponents. So that roster once, they desperately want an SEC scout, right?
Right.
You lost to Georgia in the Peach Bowl. You lost to Alabama in the Cotton Bowl. Most of these guys, I think that's the other kind of misconception is everybody thinks because they lost a lot of guys that this is going to be a young roster. It's not going to be a young roster. It's going to be an old roster with some guys that just haven't played as many snaps because of the guys that are in the NFL. Yeah, they're well aware of what it's going to be like. And remember, those games are bowl games, and Georgia at the Peach Bowl was COVID. I think there was 15,000, 16,000 in the dome. So, but you got the full experience in the Cotton Bowl with Alabama fans. Now Cincinnati fans held their own, but Alabama fans packed that place, and it was loud and rowdy. Now you're going to get the real SEC 75,000. road experience, and I'm really interested to see, like, this is a team that has, more importantly than anything, new leadership. Because Desmond Ridder was a leader for a long time. Kobe Bryant was a leader for a long time. This is now a team that's under a lot of new leadership. How do they handle the environment? How do they handle the pressure? How do they step up to the plate? Arkansas, at some point in time, is going to punch them in the mouth. Do they take their ball and go home? Or do they stand up and say, oh, we're in a fight? I've been waiting for a fight. Like, that's going to be the telltale story of the game, I think, is these are like I said, these are two physical programs that are defined by a defensive line coach and an offensive line coach looking to stand in the middle of the ring and take swings at each other.
And I think the most important thing is they both have something to prove.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, I think that's going to be the biggest intangible when it comes to this game is it's cliche as it may sound, but who wants it more? But that's it. It's what it's going to come down to because, of course, like I said, Arkansas is trying to become a respectable program in the SEC, and Cincinnati's trying to prove again, like we said earlier,
we belong.
That last year wasn't a fluke, and they're trying to get back. And this is a huge statement with the landscape of college football, and you seeing all these teams moving around. You never know in 3-4 years that the Big Ten might be calling on Cincinnati, be like, "Hey, join us. We got the SEC win over Arkansas in 2022." You know, you never know what a win like this, first off, can mean for a program 2, 3, 4 years down the road, like a place like Cincinnati.
Yeah, and for Arkansas, you beat a ranked team at home. All of a sudden, you got some momentum building into a brutal, what looks like a brutal SEC West once again. So yeah, both teams have a lot to play for. I think I'm really interested because like I said, I think the favorite thing for me is these are two programs with a similar identity. These are two programs with a similar culture, a similar, like, who we want to be. And Arkansas gets the game at home. Cincinnati would love to roll in there, walk out with the $1.3 million paycheck and a W.
That'd be nice. That would be nice. So the number one thing, I think we're about up against a break. Give us your keys to victory for Cincinnati, and maybe a prediction as far as what you think happens week 1.
Defensively, they have to hold up against the run, like we talked about.
Yeah,
because Arkansas, if they don't hold up against the run, Arkansas has the size to absolutely just run it right at you over again and make it a long day. Offensively, it's going to be the quarterback. We don't know who's got the job yet. I think it'll be Ben Bryant, in large part because Cincinnati has a very good group of wide receivers. They've got 2 tight ends that are going to play in the NFL. You've got a quarterback with a big arm. I think you play to that and you play to your strengths. If Cincinnati can move the ball through the air and hold up against what I expect to be a pretty solid Arkansas pass rush, then I think Cincinnati will be able to put some points on the board. I think that's, like, am I wrong? This is a big season for Arkansas to show we're not who we used to be on defense.
Yeah.
If Cincinnati comes in and hangs 30 with a new quarterback, that ain't going to feel good.
No, it's not at all. And it's one of them, like you said, what you said about Arkansas and Cincinnati is Arkansas is going to hit Cincinnati in the mouth. But I think it's going to be a bigger testament of what happens if Cincinnati hits Arkansas in the mouth and how is Arkansas going to respond.
I agree. I think it's a fascinating game. I think it's something worthy of what we've seen from the coaches in the AP poll. This is 2 top 25 teams. This is 2 teams that have very talented rosters and similar culture and coaching, and you line it up on September 3rd and let's go.
Yeah. So, man, I think we're up against a break, and Chad, if you don't have any, what's that?
I said I had a great time.
Yes, sir.
Hey, But we do appreciate you. That's what I was about to say, man. Yeah, you gave us a lot more insight as far as what to expect out of Cincinnati. Because really, we've been talking about it for months. I mean, people are in the comments thinking we're going to run. Arkansas is going to run for 400 yards. They're going to set and impose their will on this Bearcat team. But, being able to hear from somebody on the Cincinnati side of things really helps kind of temper the expectations, because it could be a 17-10 ball game and Cincinnati come out of Fayetteville with a win. It could be on the other end too, when Arkansas pulls out a close one. I mean, I don't expect it to be a blowout, but I don't expect it to not be a good game either. So
I think
it's going to be a great one, one of the best in week one.
I agree. I'm right there with you.
Well, again, man, I appreciate your time. Like I said, short notice coming on. I appreciate you. Good luck on the game. And everybody go follow him at bearcatjournal.com and follow him on Twitter at Chad Brindle. So, again, we're up against the break. We're going to come back, recap the conversation, go over a little basketball. And, again, Chad, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chad. See ya.
Well, we're up against a break. When we come back, we'll break down the conversation, talk a little bit of the basketball team's overseas 4-0 campaign, and then again, just talk about our expectations, what we think. Football's, hit full stride. High school starting up this week with some scrimmage games, benefit games next week. Week 0, I am assuming, or week 1. So we'll be right after the break.
Service, but also an elite gift shop. All your OTC needs, baby and wedding registries, tuxedo rentals, and much more. They are located at 821 North Rock Street in Sheridan. Give them a call today at 870-942-5121.
If you want the best service price within Northwest Arkansas and Southwest Missouri for all your plumbing and electrical needs, then look no further than Corey Hyman, Electrical Supply Guy. Corey is in full steam ahead and providing the best electrical, plumbing, and septic supply service around. So call Corey at 479-301-8220 or email him at chindman, that's HINDMAN, at andersonb.com. Again, that is 479-301-8220. And welcome back to another episode of the Hawg Talk podcast. I'm your host, Porter Hayes. Along with me is Jacob Davis. Jacob, that was, very, very good insight.
The great assessment, man.
That was,
I wasn't expecting all that, to be honest with you.
And you could tell he was legitimately, that's what he was. It wasn't a fan's take, and he didn't feel offended or anything like. He knew the expectations coming into this game, and for him to give that insight and really kind of what Arkansas fans have done in the past years, they get their expectations. And I'm not saying, do not take this as, Cincinnati's going to come in, this is going to be a 1-point game. This could turn into a 14, 21-point game. I see it as a 14, 17-point win for Arkansas. But it's just one of them things where you think that this, just because they're Cincinnati, they did make it to college football playoff. They did get beat by Alabama. Here they are coming into Fayetteville, that this could be a cakewalk. So therefore, it's a good kind of humbling, but yet pump the brakes kind of moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't realize that the guy that they have that's likely going to be at quarterback was a guy that was already on campus at one point and then went to Eastern Michigan. The guy has a big arm. So obviously Arkansas with their rebuilt secondary, and then you have Catalan back. You've got Dwight McLaughlin at defensive back. This is probably going to be one of your best pass defense teams. And so I really think, honestly, it's going to come down to who can run the ball more effectively. Will it be Cincinnati or will it be Arkansas? Because, Arkansas, even though they had Terry Hampton coming on strong, the defensive tackle out of Arkansas State that transferred in, and then you have Isaiah Nichols, who's been a constant in that rotation on the defensive line. Is Arkansas going to have enough bodies? I mean, not just week one, but just the whole season to be able to stop the run. Yeah, and so that's a big question for me, Porter. Is Cincinnati going to be able to run the ball in Arkansas? And that's one thing I wish I would have asked Chad is what their stable of running backs looks like. I didn't even think about it because Arkansas, they're piecing together a defensive line right now.
Well, and something that really stood out was, and this can come back to bite me in the butt, but when you're coming in to try to make a statement against the SEC team, if you are, and we've seen it last year, we're seeing it this year in the SEC itself. If you're coming in with quarterback questions and you're coming in 2 weeks from a game and you don't know who your quarterback is, that's worrisome of just from a talent standpoint and from a game plan standpoint, unless this is just coach speak and it's just a smoke screen. But if you don't know who your quarterback is and you don't have him taking 80, 90, 100% of your number one reps,
right? Absolutely.
That really come when it comes out of the fourth quarter, come back to bite you in the butt.
Yeah, and Arkansas, we've seen that just a few years ago with Chad or Chris. What was the kid's name who won the Walter Payton Award? And after he left us, Kelly. Oh shoot, I can't remember his first name, but y'all know who I'm talking about. You remember Steamboat that played for us played for Arkansas back in 2018? He was under Chad Morris. Him and Ty Story, they were splitting time early on in the season. My goodness, why is my mind slipping right now? Because his name, he went by Steamboat. Somebody in the comments, do I have any comments in here? Who was the freaking quarterback that Arkansas had that season? And get back with us. We'll have to come back to it. It was Cole Kelly. Yeah. I want to say Chad Kelly, but I knew that was not right because Chad Kelly was Ole Miss.
He was the one but getting the Heisman, FCS Heisman or whatever.
Yeah. But we were. It wasn't that long ago that Arkansas was struggling to figure out who their quarterback was, and and even though that was during dark times and stuff, and during Razorback football, I knew about the Cincinnati recruiting a 4-star quarterback. That was one of the best quarterbacks one of the best players they brought to campus. I was glad he brought that up. I'm surprised he's not pushing for playing time, and we may see both quarterbacks.
Yeah, and I'm sure you will. And we might see two quarterbacks well on our side. You never know. We don't know exactly. We've heard talks and rumblings of them having certain things in the playbook for Malik, and this might be one of those games to kind of and I think it's important when you have a starter like that, like KJ coming back where he's your solid number one, but yet still have some plays in there for Malik to catch them off guard, but yet you still don't want to give away too much to your SEC opponents. I know this game means a lot and you want to win. That's not even a question, but still you still want to kind of keep a little of the cards in the deck when you got your SEC opponent coming up the following week.
Yeah, and it's kind of rare for even Arkansas to be able to bring back a starting quarterback for a second consecutive year. It's been since 2017 with Austin Allen. That was the last time Arkansas was able to bring in a starting quarterback in the SEC. Both the Allen brothers. Austin played 2 years here, and then or started 2 years here, and then Brandon started three and a half. So it's definitely different. And then Kendall Briles, this is the first time he's had a starting quarterback return since he was at Baylor. Yeah. So it's been a while for Kendall, and I think Arkansas is going to be set up for success this season as far as being able to move the football and being able to develop offensively. And Arkansas was very dangerous offensively last season, but having KJ back, having your running backs back, all your receivers, they said Jaden Hazelwood's really performing, being the guy that you thought you were getting out of Oklahoma and not the guy that you were getting in the spring is big too. You got Matt Landers. So this Arkansas team, outside of wide receiver inexperience, this team's pretty experienced. Arkansas is, and I don't think you're going to go and be ho hum offensively like we saw last year against Texas and Rice to start. I think you're gonna have to see a explosive offense early on.
And I think it's comforting. You come out of your first scrimmage, and we didn't really hear. You can be vague, and you can be vague in a negative way, and you can be vague, and you can tell, like, all right, what are they hiding? There was a lot of positivity coming out of that first scrimmage from everybody who's seen it, heard about it, talked about it. So, I mean, that's comforting them knowing, and that's just how important having your coordinators back, having your head coach back, having your general back. I mean, I just couldn't imagine. I know Malik's good, and he's going to be a promising quarterback, but trying to this is going to be one of the most important years for Razorback football to build off of what they did last year. It's anything to go out and have a good 9-4 year.
Right.
We live in the world now. What's next? What's next? Can you do it again? The same things everybody's saying about Cincinnati, we're saying about Arkansas. Can you do it again? We've talked about what happens if they go 8-5, or if they go 10-2, 9. Those types of seasons. And this game's going to be huge. And this is the thing that's the most dangerous when it comes to college football: is one game. It could set your whole season back on how you play in September, because just you don't play enough games, and one game, one loss can put you out of the playoffs. It can put you in a different bowl. You're not now. You're like, we're going to make a New Year's Six bowl. Oh, we still have our SEC season to play. There's a lot of pressure coming into this season.
Yeah. And we haven't really talked about it much, but because it's such a hard schedule to start, Arkansas could start 1-3. We haven't talked about that enough. We talked about Cincinnati and South Carolina being for sure wins. We've talked about Texas A&M being overrated last week. I mean, I don't understand how in the world they're number 6 in the country to start out the season. I don't get it. And Arkansas, was sitting at 23 in the coaches poll last week, sitting at 19. I mean, I guess it's based off of what they lost defensively. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, Arkansas, man, we haven't talked about it enough. I mean, what if Cincinnati comes in and surprises you, and then you go into week 2 lackadaisical and lose to a upstart South Carolina team? And I know you hate South Carolina as much as anybody. It's a very humbling experience if you do start the season 0-2 and have to get your first win of the year against Missouri State. We haven't talked about that enough.
Honestly, I don't think we have to worry about that.
I know, but
when we get to game week, I mean, we can elaborate more, but I really honestly think what we talked about last week in breaking that wall, I think it's time to really fully trust what we have. And I think I'm starting to feel that way of, let's just enjoy this season. Let's know that they're going to go out there and win. That's
absolutely. That's what everybody else does.
Wants from everybody, wants from us, the fans, his players, himself, his family, his friends. Look, it's time to trust us. And that's the thing where it could be almost disrespectful to Sam and his staff and the players. What more do we have to do to prove to you that you can trust us? We won the games. We played with Alabama. We've beaten LSU. We've beaten Texas A&M. We got our first win against SEC opponent, Mississippi State. We had all these firsts. And then, like I said, even I've said it. What can you do it again this year? So I think it's the time we're coming in this Cincinnati game, but I don't expect them to have to win this by 14 to 21 points for me to, be comfortable. Okay, that's what a win's a win. And this is still a team. If you get a 7-point win and you grind it out and you beat a team like Cincinnati, that gives me more comfort. Going into South Carolina, everything aside, I think they're going to take care of business just because of the same things we're talking about Cincinnati. You don't know what you're going to get out of South Carolina. And they're not going to have played enough at Cincinnati to sit there and really gauge. And, of course, you get them at home. You get them at Fayetteville again. So I think they were talking about on the SEC network of, starting 4-0 and having that Bama game. Both teams, I think that's a huge, huge reality. Because you got that monkey off your back in Texas A&M, plus you look at the other 3 opponents. it's an 80-20 for me that they start 4-0 heading into Bama.
Yeah, and you guys, when I says Arkansas starting 0-2 or 1-3, y'all know it had to break my heart to even say that because it could be a reality. But still, I really do think 100%, 99.99999%. I have faith in what Sam Pittman is doing at Arkansas. I think what he has done has been nothing short of a miracle, Porter. This, where we were just 2 years ago. I mean, right before COVID started, and we in Arkansas hired Sam Pittman, and we're thinking, what's next? What's Arkansas going to do? And then they hired Barry Odom, and then they hired Kendall Briles, and you're thinking, oh, this guy's serious. And these guys are still serious about Arkansas, and that's what's impressive. And and they don't want to go anywhere.
Everybody wants to be here. I mean, you look at the teams, and I think that says a lot. Like in Malik's case, getting him to come back, and some of these kids just might want to test other waters and stuff and see what's out there. But for him to come back means a lot it says a true testament of what this culture is, and he wants to be a part of it. He believes, just like everything he believes as well.
Yeah, and if you want to go be along with Corey and share your score predictions, your way too early score predictions as far as what you think is going to happen against Cincinnati on September 3rd. Man, I don't know if you want to share something, but what do you think is your biggest key as far as Arkansas beating Cincinnati after talking to Chad earlier?
Well, I mean, it's going to come down to, can you set the line of scrimmage? Can you wear them down? Can you impose your will? Because we talk about that confidence. And what he said, you have this game plan of everything going your way, and you playing your style of ball. What if they make you play a different style of ball? But I think that this team is too disciplined. This team is too, with the coaching staff like Sam Pittman, Odom, and Briles, you're coming into a solid core. You have senior leadership. You've got some new guys coming in. You got some transfers coming in. People just raving about the transfers. I think it's just, honestly, I think the penalties are going to be a big issue. Don't commit a lot of penalties. Sustain your drives. Don't go 3 and out. Don't let them get the 3rd and long. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that could go into it, but you just keep the the momentum going and just impose your will and wearing them down, and then just running away with the game. I think it's going to be my biggest key.
It wasn't said during the segment with Chad earlier, but Arkansas's offensive line being so big, and he was saying like one of their their best edge rusher last year was only 240 pounds. Yeah. Like that's just crazy to me.
That'd be a problem.
That bothers me a lot. Like thinking, man, this could get ugly. Arkansas could just kind of just push and push and push and push and push and just have success all day because you're going to have to kind of manufacture an offensive line out of, you're returning 4 starters, but you've got 7 or 8 guys that could start. You're going to be able to test that out maybe if your defensive line that you're going up against is only 240 pounds. You may be able to tinker a little bit and figure out what the best fit is. So, I mean, Arkansas being able to run the football, that's the biggest thing that I think Arkansas is going to do. Like, are they going to be able to get to the second level of the defense? And once you get to the second level of the defense over and over and over again, it's only going to be a matter of time before you break it open.
Yeah,
and you've got the guys to break it open.
Whether we do have to talk about the heat, we're talking about. I mean, I understand this is no disrespect. Now, I was up in Michigan and it was hot up there. It was, but there was no humidity. It was not humid. And you're talking about 2:30 in the afternoon. You're talking about guys 75 to 100 pounds underweight.
Yeah.
For 4 hours, you're not running up and down the court like on a basketball game. You're hitting them, holding them for 4 quarters, and that's going to come into play. And I'm not saying it's going to be a cakewalk,
right? And he was talking about those games against SEC opponents, against Georgia and Alabama. Those games, and he ended up saying it, weren't home games. Those games were played in domes.
Uh-huh.
Like climate controlled domes. These guys aren't gonna. They're gonna come down here and they're gonna. I think they're gonna end up having climate shock a little bit, kind of like what Arkansas. They're gonna end up having to play BYU during the middle of the season. I mean, and you think climate change here is going to be different going from Cincinnati to Fayetteville? Thinking about going from Fayetteville to Provo, Utah.
Yeah. Well,
that's going to be tough too.
I guarantee it. And this is just me. What I would come down that whole week, and I would come down. Say that the game's on Saturday. I would either come in on a Monday or a Tuesday.
Kind of get accustomed to it.
Let you practice on that field. Get acclimated. That way, you're not coming in here on a Wednesday, having a little walkthrough, having one practice, and then expect to go play. I don't know what kind of adjustments they can make to manipulate the humidity and stuff. But I think aside from practicing in a daggum sauna,
that's what it feels like right now.
Because being outside all day, every day for my job, I know the humidity. I know when it's hot and how much it drains me on a day-to-day basis. So I could just imagine you adding football pads, pants, and now let me go hit this 300-pound lineman for
I don't know why I just thought about this, but when Arkansas beat LSU in 2014, 17-0, I remember the LSU players on the sidelines in front of the heaters drinking hot chocolate. I don't know why I just had that vision in my head. Being able, you go from nice South Louisiana weather, and you go to Fayetteville and it's freezing cold, like negative 35 freaking degrees, and you're over there drinking hot chocolate. What do you do when you're running up and down the field and it's like 90 degrees at game time at 2:30? And we've seen that lately. Arkansas has been playing like anywhere between 11 and 3 o'clock on season openers, and I've been to the last 7 season openers, and every single one of them has been hot. It sucks to be so hot.
Well, and it's getting hotter later in the year. Look at the pattern. We're looking at the summer. You look at the August we had, and then we had 14, 15 days of over 100 degrees. It was brutal. And I know that they might be, trying to forecast it getting cooler towards the end of the month, and hopefully, because you want safety. When it all comes down to it, that is the one thing I don't want. Is that hot weather to work, because that affects boating, that affects your conditioning, your hydration, that affects cramps and people. It turns into and you're playing on turf. It creates a brutal environment to go in there and playing for 60 minutes.
Yeah, the conditioning and being able to not have cramps. And I think that's a lot of it too. When you're Cincinnati and you don't know if you have the second string guys, like you said earlier. Like once you have guys go down with cramps, who's going to step up and go after that? That's going to be a factor. And I haven't thought about that in a while. Is how is the weather going to impact the game as far as that goes? So yeah, I want to say that Arkansas still has a chance. I think Arkansas can probably put up as many points as they can probably name their score, and they're probably going to get it. I think a lot of that's going to be because of the run game and KJ having so many more weapons. Like if you can get Matt Landers going, if you can get Hazelwood going, Arkansas may be able to get behind the defensive backs and be able to hit it from both sides because, you had Traylon Burks, who's an all-everything. You have Warren Thompson back now. You have who's a deep threat, not only in a possession threat, too. So Arkansas is going to be able to do some things offensively in week 1, and you're not going to be able to play vanilla. You can't be vanilla by design like Chad Morris used to love to say. You're just going to have to do it.
This is just to be brutally honest. This is a team that's been to more college football playoff appearances than you have. This is a team that's been there. They've played Alabama on the big stage. And so hopefully, they don't come at. And another thing I'm talking about, we're talking about the biggest key to win. Don't overlook them. I think this is the thing that if you want my true honest, I take back my other statement. You want to know my biggest key is do not overlook them. Do not underestimate this team. You go out there and you handle business, you're going to win the game. And also, we were talking about the wide receivers. You don't have a lot of film on these guys, so we don't know what we're getting. So if we haven't seen film,
Right.
we haven't seen anything. They're not giving film to Cincinnati.
Oh no.
who they're going to have step up, and so you have 2 to 3 new guys at your receiving. How are you going to game plan? I mean, I can understand if one's come in, but how are
Right.
you going to really physically game plan, mentally game plan for 2 to 3 different guys? You got Knox back, Warren Thompson back. All right, who are we going to put where? What is this guy's tendencies? How are we going to play him? How are we going to open up on our cornerbacks? So that's going to be. I think that's going to be the biggest key. We're talking about that 4-0 start. They're going to have so many questions on who to guard, who's the number one guy, and you might have Warren Thompson open up first game. Then you might have, Sanders. You might have somebody. You never know. They might start throwing to the backfield and getting Rocket Sanders all out of the backfield.
Yeah.
You
And people forget that he was a converted wide receiver.
Yeah. Well, and then what?
He's got hands.
Wide receiver. You got a quarterback that can throw a reverse pass. You got a. You never know what you're going to get with this team, and I think it's scary in a way because I know I've preached about the wide receiver core a lot, but it's exciting as well because I'm excited to see what happens these first couple of weeks.
Yeah. Real quick, I mean, we haven't talked about the basketball team this week. I think we can transition to them just for a little bit. They went 4-0. I mean, raise your hand if your team went 4-0 during their overseas 4-2 tour. Arkansas did. Auburn did not. Sorry, you're not an everything school. You did not go 4-0. Here's your L. But Arkansas did really do some good things. You obviously knew what you were getting out of Nick Smith. But how about guys like Trevin Brazil in the final game had like 28 points and 12 rebounds. An absolute dominant performance. I think he went 29 of 35 from the field in the final 3 games.
Like 93%.
Yeah, that's stupid crazy. That's stupid crazy.
The same thing we're talking about with football, we can transition to basketball. Is there's so many new guys, and they showed their true depth. And we can take this like we do the red white game and the scrimmages and stuff.
Yeah,
like that. This was a tour, but you know what? The flip side of it, they got to play up to these games. They got to go and be mentally prepared to go in there and not. We're talking about don't go in there and underestimate. It's so easy just to run through the motions on a basketball court.
Yeah,
and treat it like a pickup game. But there was so many guys that just showed up and showed out. Nick Smith Jr. with an injured finger scored 17, 20 points, whatever, we all.
Yeah, every day.
Stats were that game. But I mean, Bruce had it 17, but with an injured finger come out right off the bat and scored 17.
Yeah, and then you had Barry Dunning Jr., a guy that out of all the freshmen, I mean, most didn't expect to do much. And he showed why he was Gatorade Player of the Year out of the state of Alabama, a guy that he was a glue guy. He can pass. He does everything that you need to out of a guy, whether it's on the offensive or defensive side of the court. And then you had Kamani Johnson, like a guy that didn't do hardly anything last year, was a role player, a guy that if you had Jalen Williams and in foul trouble, he was going to have to come in and hold his own. Like, the guy played so well. I think in one of the games he had 10 points and 12 rebounds, and then another one he was like plus 14. I have it in a story I'm writing, but he was like plus 14 in the plus and minus, and that shows how good a basketball he was playing. And most of the players were in the positive. But Kamani being positive, I mean, that's a huge addition to this team, and being able to go deep. If you can use him, get him in there, and any kind of minutes that he can have production-wise is going to be big.
And I think what we're going to see is we're going to see the Jalen Williams effect. With all this flash and all this offensive power we got coming in, what Jalen Williams did last year and being a dog, being somebody who got to the league by hard work. He didn't go out there and have to score 25 points a game. He went in there by setting charges, blocking shots, playing defense, getting boards. I mean, that dog, and we're seeing that with Kamani Johnson. He stepped up his game. Dunning, Black, driving the lane and dunking the ball. I mean, we've seen a lot of explosiveness out of this team. but I think you're going to have 3 to 4 guys that are going to be down low.
Yeah.
Look, this is going to be a dangerous team. I'm not taking this just because they went overseas and ran off with the competition. They played one close game and won the other ones by 20 points, 15, 20 points. But you got the balance. And there's times where Muss wasn't too pleased with the team and even got a technical foul while he was over there. But that showed his passion. But this team is so balanced, they're going to be scary.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, we're not saying they're going to go 34-0 or 35-0 and be the greatest basketball team to ever play next to the Indiana of the 70s. But what we're saying is this team's going to be fun to watch. They have guys that are showing up that you didn't expect to show up, and that's a lot. The lot of that goes to the development of this staff and what they're able to do. And so Arkansas, you're going to have to compete with Kentucky, who has some of the guys coming back like Jacob Toppin and some of the best freshmen and some of the best transfers like Severe Wheeler coming back again. Kentucky's going to be good. You're going to have to compete with Alabama, but Arkansas's got that. I mean, the only problem really with this team this coming season is they only have one ball.
Yeah.
And Nick Smith's going to dominate that ball. But people are going to have to step up. And it's not like with last year's team and you just had J.D. Note and Jalen Williams and everybody else. You have a legit 5 that any of them can be on the court and score at any moment. Like, you're going to be able to trust and depend on these guys. And that's the biggest difference from this past season.
Well, and I think them playing this overseas tour, this European tour, is a big testament of, hey, this is what it's going to take to win. Trust me.
Yeah.
But you've got a coach that's coached in all levels.
Oh, yeah.
You've got a coach has turned around an atrocious program, turned them into a legitimate Elite 8 Final Four contender every single year now. And that holds a lot of weight. That holds a lot of weight when it comes
Absolutely.
to and when you got guys wanting to go to the league, he's putting guys in the league. He's not just using you to come here, let's come get me a national championship, and then, oh, well, have fun trying to make it in the league. He's getting drafted. And so that's a big part of getting this high class to come in and getting this high recruiting class. You've got more coming in. You've got 8, 9, 10 dudes that could start on any team in the nation. That's what's going to be fun about this that's going to be the biggest thing is we say there's one ball, but getting that right 5, you've got all these gold plates. Which 5's going to go together? I mean, that's going to be the hardest decision.
Yeah,
and
you're exactly right.
With what guy fits with who, it's just the fact there's so much talent. What player gets the best out of each one the most? And that's where you're 5. And this 5 that plays on a Wednesday, guess what? With that grueling SEC schedule, when you're playing Wednesday, Saturday, if you've got 2 legitimate starting 5s, man, you could use that to your advantage. You can almost use it like, the baseball team used Cox. Use him half the time in both games. You come out with one roll in 5, you've got another one ready to go, and you're sitting there and you're rested. They could, easily, blow through the SEC competition.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I agree with that, man. And I really think that Arkansas is poised to take that next step. Like, the Final Four is your next step. Like, I don't think falling back into the Sweet 16 is a huge problem. I don't think that is the least of our worries right now because it's a long way off. But as long as you're making the NCAA tournament consistently and getting to that second weekend, Musselman's going to be here for a while. And he may not be here forever, but you're living in the golden moments of Razorback sports right now. Where you've got the football team right where you want them. You get your basketball team right where you want it. You've got the baseball team. You got gymnastics. You got softball. You've got tennis. You've got golf. You've got soccer. All competing right now, and you never have any time off. But you look at it right now, in Arkansas being able to be an elite team, go to the Final Four. The sky's the limit for this team. And they showed me that they're not a bunch of guys wanting their own. They're wanting their team to be successful. That's all they care about right now, and that's that's the most impressive thing to me coming off of this tour was the unselfishness.
Yeah,
between
that's
these
a lot
guys.
of fun. They're going to notice how much fun it is. I mean, even watching guys do that, it's going to be contagious. And then when they get the chance to play in front of Bud Walton Arena and start seeing the oops and the the blocks like Brazil
oh goodness,
block. I mean, just the putback dunks and feeding off each other's energy is going to be it's going to be amazing.
You're giving me chills. We got to stop. But
we're an hour 5 in, man, and it really was a good show. Special thanks again to Chad Brindle for
absolutely
coming on and giving us some good insight. Again, thank you to all of our sponsors for helping us be able to do what we do. Our fans out there. If we didn't have the fans, this wouldn't be possible. And again, Jacob, unless you got anything else, man.
I don't know if I don't think I have anything. I think I've emptied my heart this evening, and go ahead and wrap it up, Porter.
All right, well, that will do it for another episode of the Hawg Talk Live. I am Porter Hayes. That is Jacob Davis, and we will catch you next week.
Woo pig.